Well, it's a good turnout for it being KubeCon. Who is Mr. Kubernetes SIG API Machinery? Because obviously not Daniel. That's not me.
Hey, this is Cameron Zahedi. I'm the guy that's been emailing you all about all the Zoom updates and meeting updates and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I have to sign in as the official account for now to make sure that I get the video recorded so I can upload it. Eventually, ideally, somebody else wants to, or we can maybe rotate through somebody else's signing in as the official account, recording the video. But we'll roll with this for now.
Sure.
You always get the version that is not. Doesn't happen.
Hi everyone. I'm trying to.
You're a little quiet for me, Daniel.
I don't know which one is the right one. Maybe we're just on the wrong cable.
This is Zoom is less convenient. We're trying to get the. I have to run it off of my laptop, so.
You're upside down. It's kind of impressive, actually.
Yeah, I would prefer it not fit upside down. Like that was really
That
stiff.
having been said, I still don't think that still doesn't seem to work.
Daniel, can you say a test sentence or something?
A test sentence or something?
All right, that's a little better.
Okay, there it goes. There it goes. Okay. Hold on, I need to. Oh no, it is mirroring. Okay. Sorry, my camera is pointed at me. There's other people in the room with me. Let's see. Let me find the document. Somewhere I had the agenda document. I have too many tabs.
I just posted it in the comments or in the chat.
Okay. I guess I can try and figure out what the chat is. So. Yeah, I haven't shared. I guess I probably should share my screen soon. Oh, it doesn't let me. Let's try again. Let's see, I think this is it. Is that working? I can't tell.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay. Do you see my whole screen? Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Highlights it in pink. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, then I think we're in business. Let me zoom in a little bit. That is not zooming in. I guess it is. Okay. So on the agenda, I had the several of the proposal docs that I had put out, and I think if we have time at the end, Phil wanted to show us some of the user-facing stuff that he's been working on. The user-facing shell over API Machinery code. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
I did want to ask about syncing the repos, what we were going to do now that we've got a 1.6 tag we trying to sync tags out or tag across repos for people who are trying to pull those in on other projects? So we can add that to the end.
Yeah. Those. Okay. So maybe we can start at the top then. So a week or two ago, Mehdi sent around a proposal for like what does it take to get a new client language, a library and a new client language. Proposal sort of sets out what do we expect of various support levels for a client, or what do we expect for various levels? What does it take to have a stable client? We sort of split it into like bronze, silver, gold, and alpha, beta, stable. So the idea, like, to have a bronze client, basically all you have to do is be able to get some call to work somewhere. But that means you can read a kubeconfig file and parse the auth stuff and send the auth stuff over the wire. So you can just any standard REST call should work. For silver requirements, we wanted to add, like, you should be able to issue a watch. For gold requirements, you should be able to additionally issue the exec, attach, port forward, those the stuff that we've implemented with Speedy. You should also do proto encoding, and you should generate examples. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that seem like the right breakdown? I'll take that as a yes.
I had a quick question on the exec. Exec isn't particularly, the actual protocol for doing an exec isn't particularly documented anywhere that I could find, at least. Is that, like, particularly with all the Speedy stuff, is that really a requirement we want for gold?
That's a good question. Eddie, did you implement exec for Python?
Yeah. I didn't hear because people in
Where did you
Someone
find
take it?
it documented?
it's not documented.
It's not documented.
It should be documented.
You just figured it out?
I figured it.
Okay, so maybe we need an action item to document that. Yeah, that's probably true. They're all it's all the same thing, basically. Okay, so I'll add an action item we need to document.
And watch is not
to document this. Okay. We're running off of my laptop, by the way, so people won't be able to hear you if you're not located close. Yeah, we're speaking loudly. So, and then like, as sort of a mostly orthogonal issue, we define like alpha, beta, stable for clients. So alpha clients, whatever, knock yourself out. Doesn't really matter. For beta clients, we should at least implement the bronze level support. Your releases shouldn't, like, RMRF my machine. You should have some sort of instructions so people can try it. And it would be nice if you had 2 or more maintainers of the repository. So if someone gets hit by a bus, like, it can keep on going. And stable, we want all that plus good documentation, have a deprecation policy, document your versioning procedure, document your release process, and actually have a few users.
One more thing occurred to me this morning.
Yeah.
Which is, if we ever tried to build any of these for Mac or Windows.
Is someone talking?
Yeah, Brian is asking about running our clients on Mac or Windows. Building them?
I can't hear anyone.
Brian is suggesting that the clients should be buildable on Macintosh and Windows.
Platforms that it should work on.
What's the sense of people out there? Do we want to define like platforms that the clients work on, or
You control.
I don't really think that should be a requirement. I mean, I do wonder about, I don't think I have a stable client that didn't support watch calls, right? I don't think that's a client that is unlikely to change, right? Given how critical watches are to our overall logic flows and presumably to someone else who's trying to use the client as well.
I don't know if I followed that.
If your client doesn't support a watch, can you really be confident that you are not going to have a breaking change to support it?
Watches in the silver requirements.
Which are not listed as a requirement for stable, are they?
Okay, that's an oversight. I think stable needs to be elite.
Okay, good. Then I agree. I think it needs to be silver. I don't think it needs to be gold because I can imagine lots of use cases that don't require exec attach and port forward. They're useful, but those are pretty specific.
Well, I don't know. I think you could have a stable client that is just extremely simple and only meets the bronze requirements. Stable doesn't mean that you never change it. It means that you have it means that users have reasonable expectations about how you'll change it. Right? Stable doesn't mean that it's like cast in like cement. It means that that users can rely on your deprecation policy. Does that make sense?
Rather than put other platforms like Mac and Windows under the stable requirements, maybe along under the gold requirements, although the intersection between that tier and the
Yeah, so
other tiers are
I mean these are libraries, not we probably should say something about platforms because otherwise people will add on like incompatible extensions. But like the thing that we care about is like
used on ARM, which should just work.
Yeah, should just
with,
work.
with our build infrastructure.
Should just work.
But in general, clients are more, as opposed to other parts of the system, clients are more likely to be used on non-Linux platforms.
That's true.
Qt control,
That's definitely
particularly for sure, no, or used on Mac
Yeah,
and Windows.
yeah, but this is not about cube control, right?
It's not about Qt control, but other, like Qt control is not. We don't want that to be the only one.
Do we want to leave this as a language specific?
Is there a
I think
way
it's-
to dial the remit? It's really hard to hear anyone talking.
Yeah, like I can't even tell whether I can talk or not.
I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. I don't know how to. Oh yeah, Sarah has a microphone which I forgot to grab. Okay, we're gonna grab a microphone.
All right, thanks.
For now, should we take as an action item to add something about platform? Specify the platform.
I couldn't really hear that part of the discussion. My immediate thought is that if someone wants to have their client and wants to have a stable client and doesn't want to support Windows or doesn't want to support Mac OS, I don't see that as something that would stop them from being stable.
Maybe we should just define like the client as per platform. Maybe we should say that you state your support level for each platform.
Yeah,
Sure.
that makes sense. And again, these are libraries, so like if your library supports some set of platforms, you have to state that. I didn't see Proto discussed. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, Proto was listed as a gold requirement.
Okay, I
and
missed
I would
that.
agree with that. It should definitely not be a lower level requirement.
Okay, so I added support level documented per platform under stable. Would that be, that's probably good. Under stable. Yeah, so Proto is listed under gold requirements. Yeah, so given this, I think our current Go client is close to meeting the stable level, but not quite there.
And it would be silver, not gold. As I recall, we don't support exec and attach.
Is that only does that only live in kube control?
I think it's mixed. We have some parts in the client and some are still in Cube.
I'm reasonably sure that the remote command package is not inside of client code.
Okay, we should probably adjust that. Let's see. So, can you hear me? We just switched microphones.
I can hear you. Does Brian want to try to talk?
Testing, testing.
So much better.
It's still not great, but a lot better.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
May not work because you're closer to laptop. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes you use an anyway.
You can manage that in the input.
So we adjusted. We added a bit about what did I add for stable clients? We said document your support level per platform. So that seemed at least the bare minimum.
We get more users.
Yeah, we can expand that when we get more users. Okay, does anybody have any objections to just approving that document?
You're gonna convert it to Markdown or something?
Yeah. Okay.
I think there were a couple open questions about the kube config stuff, but I mean, I don't have an objection to taking this as a starting point and evolving it. It'll be painful to evolve it once you have people in the different buckets, and then we decide, oh, you know what, this thing actually should be in a different bucket. That's going to be pretty tough.
Okay. Okay, so
There's a talk about the whole structure. Do you want to keep it in the file or?
is there that? So,
You didn't specifically highlight it, but this also describes breaking apart the client repo into two pieces. I'm in favor of it, but I wouldn't want it to surprise anyone if we say
okay. I didn't realize you'd updated this document too.
that wasn't me. I didn't think.
I'm sorry, I was talking to Betty.
Yeah, I think it's there. It was something here. I just updated it.
I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
That's muted. That's muted.
I know. It's
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we're still not convinced that our microphone is working.
No.
Anyway, I'm in favor of this. I just want to call it out because we didn't go over it here. This splits our client repo into two pieces. One that maintains the not type-specific pieces, and one that has clients for the particular types. So one would be something like a schemaless REST client, and the other would be like this client can work with pods and with extensions. And it's a distinction that I think we need to be able to build pieces on top of it. But if we agree to this proposal, we've agreed to that. So, and I'm in favor.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I made it into the document, but also I proposed just using a separate GitHub work for all the clients.
Yes, that is in the document.
Okay.
That is both here and the other.
Yeah, it's both here and the other one. Okay, so it seems like people are generally in favor of this document. We can clean up the remaining things and we can convert to Markdown.
I have left a comment saying we don't need to separate those.
So that's the let's talk about the other document. Yeah. One thing at a time. I think this one is less controversial. Okay, I'm gonna write more or less approved than the. Okay, so moving on. The next thing that I had written up is like an overall client structure, and so the basic idea here was just to factor where we store what. So we just to sum up for anyone who didn't read it, we're proposing to split to make a Kubernetes client GitHub repo, take all of our generators, put it into a gen repo Kubernetes client org, we're taking all of our generators, including the Go and the Swagger generators, and putting that into a gen repo there. And then I had a proposal to split the per language clients into 2 or more repos each. One repo for utility functions and like, what did I say here? Like transport, REST client, work queue, informer, dynamic discovery clients, utility functions. That's what we're going
The basic client that doesn't require any code generation.
Yeah, stuff that doesn't require any generator parts. The stuff like it is.
Some people might just want to use that.
In fact, I state that here. Yeah. So like the client without any generator parts. Yeah. So auth, all the stuff that you would need to build a Kubernetes client, basically. And then for every grouping of API groups, so like for our core API, for the federation API, for the service catalog APIs, for the each of these logical distinctions could choose to publish a repo with the generated client. Alternatively, people could choose to just consume the generator directly and build a client for themselves as part of their tool chain. I think honestly, my preference would be to like not publish the pre-generated clients at all. I think it is friendly to users if we do that, though.
Yes.
I think
do not use this for production.
Actually speaking, I don't see how Go in particular people would consume.
Yeah, there's just it's too awful. Like we need people. If you're doing it for production, you have more than one user, you have more than one developer.
I feel like I'm hearing half of this. I think that a Go library that doesn't actually publish the result of running the generator for the client is of limited utility. Is that what you're agreeing with, or is that what you're proposing?
Sorry, I didn't follow that.
I think that we need to actually publish the generated code, the result of running the client generator. I think that we should.
Why?
Because I think that's much more reasonable for someone to try to include, right? Rather than have to, like, some assembly required, go generate this. Instead, you depend and go get the library that's already been generated for you. It's ready to go, and you can compile against it. And then you can also reasonably expect that anyone else that you try to interoperate with is going to have the identical types to you. Their package, the interfaces will match, and you'll run. If instead you try to force everyone to generate their own, then we're going to end up trying to convert between clients as you try to integrate multiple projects together.
I think generating your own is not a viable option. Like, I can't imagine a scenario where that would actually work. The generator are all the generators written in the languages that they generate?
No.
So every language has a different build system, and some of these languages don't even have build systems. So, and Go, we all know how badly vendering sucks and how badly the build system sucks.
Yeah, that's actually
so
why.
Go, it's the only language that would be native, but it's going to suck if they have to build it themselves. And every other language is going to be non-native, and nobody's going to want to do that.
Yeah, it's a little incoherent to say, if you want to use our Python client, first install Go and run these generations.
Well, does the Python client generator, does it use Go?
No, but the Python
it doesn't use Go.
C++ or something?
Java.
Java, yeah. So even worse. Right.
Maven, and all Swagger code generation is Maven, but actually it can be run independently. It can be run as an executable file. They publish an executable.
That just seems like
I'm going to go on
a whole layer of friction that we're making every consumer. It just seems like putting the burden on the consumer. You're fanning out all that friction and work, and I don't see the benefit.
I think we shouldn't even consider this. Like, it's just really.
So we don't want people to use the generator. We want people to consume
No,
prepackaged.
We still want the generator for this. People like Service Catalog can actually generate their clients, right? We want to have them able to generate clients that can use the same base types they have here.
If we're saying that users are going to consume pre-generated clients, that
puts a lot of burden on anybody producing an API to maintain a client repository.
Yes.
And keep it like in sync with the rest of the ecosystem.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it means like it means there's an explosion of like group collection dash language
I don't
repositories.
think it should be by API group. It should be by.
Sorry, API group collection. so like one for federation, one for service catalog, one for like core Kubernetes.
Yes.
And you have
times the number of languages.
Yes.
And whoever's consuming that has to make sure that they're pulling compatible versions when they try, if they want to use more than one group in a single process.
Yes, that means the branches have to be, they have to have a 1.0 branch, 2.0 branch, 3.0 branch, and they have to work together.
But so earlier, Daniel was talking about things like the language utilities that the generator is going to pull in. And so if I'm pulling in Go, every one of my libraries better be using the same copy of that language utility, or I'm going to be in trouble.
This is like a Go binary problem.
Yeah, it is, exactly. But I mean, it's not specific to Go, right? Every language is going to face this.
Java
Well, assuming that whoever's building this wants to go to the effort and knows enough Java black magic to use class loaders to separate them, which they're not going to. So you're going to hit the same problem with the jars in there, the libraries in Python, every language is going to face this.
Does that mean every API group collection repo, all those repos have to make a release at the same time?
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, essentially, if you want to pull in different vendored copies of these libraries, then you need to be able to make sure they were built using the same underlying systems so that they're safe to be compatible in one process.
So I think this is just suggesting that somebody needs to build a release bundle and we can produce one, but if like Red Hat wanted to produce one that also included OpenShift, that would also be possible for them, but we shouldn't require every end consumer to do it.
So I think we agree. I think we agree we don't want every end user, but at some point, users are going to have to do it, right? I mean, if I'm using my own aggregated API, or there are times where
nobody should do.
We are still providing the tools. So if someone has to be able to, but if we don't actually publish the generated code, the code that runs or that's created as a result of the generator, everyone will definitely have to, instead of a few people may have to.
Yeah, I mean, we're incentivized to make the tooling, the generators usable and as usable as possible, because we're going to be maintaining generated clients. So we have incentive to do that. But like David said, if we don't publish it, we're requiring everyone to use it, and that seems bad.
So I have just a few additional thoughts. Like as written, this document does say we will publish it. Like that was the intention.
But
that makes things a lot. That makes a lot of things hard.
The assumption is the other repo is completely generated. The other repos are generated. It's not changed manually in any way.
That's the goal, yes.
Yeah,
so then any of those clients that we have in our org, a robot can actually update them all together on each release. Right?
That would be exactly, yes.
Yeah. So we can keep them in sync by just generating all of them. We can force that there is a config file somewhere at the root of the repo that says how to generate this repo, and the robot can go and update it.
That leads into my next question, which is, if we are talking about having in repos and trying to keep them all in sync, why not just publish all the generated code in single repos? Like the issue with that is that people would be importing more clients than their cluster may support. Is that really
like all the not all the languages, but all the API groups?
All the API groups.
For a language.
For a language, like Federation, Service Catalog, the main repo, just stuff them all in one generator repo.
Can they be any conflicts?
Why we should even just combine the utility as well?
No, let's talk about that separately.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that separately.
I think that's important to go after this. But is there any conflict between these API groups, or it can be?
there shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
API groups are named to prevent conflicts.
I mean, as long as clients, as long as it doesn't become a requirement for clients, because then it wouldn't be composable.
So I get, yes, this is what I'm asking is composability a requirement for the separate API group collection repositories or libraries?
Apparently, strong word, it's very desirable. Like otherwise, they'll have to fork our repo and add whatever other API groups and rebuild them.
Yes, that's basically the question that I'm asking. Like,
Right.
if I've got a third-party resource or an aggregated API for my cluster, and I want to provide my developers with a typed client for this thing.
So what I would suggest
How do I do that?
is that we put all of the APIs under our umbrella, under our control, into a single repo, just for convenience. And as long as users don't have to link all of libraries they don't need into their programs, it doesn't cause a bloat for them. And we have a test which ensures that it's possible to add another fake API group and use it together with that library so that we don't break composability. But we don't actually force people to consume multiple repos.
I like the idea of having a separate repo for types, but I'm not sure that I would want all the Kubernetes types there, right? I see things like federation as a distinct set of APIs, and also things like the aggregator APIs.
Yeah.
They're logically distinct and separate.
I guess it's true. I mean, the direction we're going with the project is, in order to get anything into the Kubernetes repo or whatever you want to call core or required APIs, they're going to have to go through a life cycle where they start an incubator. So I think that is worth taking into consideration as a way of factoring. Like we have the mature, accepted, I mean, for some definition of mature, but the accepted set of APIs, and then the up and coming APIs will at least be two bodies of APIs.
Okay, I'm not sure how that cashes out in terms of like.
I mean, should we just try? Like, how much do we need to bite shut on before we actually do it? Like, can we just try creating the by repo thing? You know, so right now there are only 2 repos, right? Source catalog that have APIs that we want to aggregate.
And the aggregator itself has a
Has its own API, yeah.
Would you do that with the Kubernetes APIs? I think that would make sense, actually.
Yeah, it's going to be linked to API server.
Yeah, it's going to. I think that would make.
I couldn't hear you. What?
We're suggesting that we link the aggregation API, registration API in with the rest of the Kubernetes APIs. I don't think that's supposed to come separately.
Would you try to make the same argument for federation?
Federation is not part of our API server, right? It's not, has its own API server.
Yeah, I would not make the same argument for federation, I think.
It's not even going to be aggregated.
No. Okay, so it seems like the part of this proposal that is relatively okay with everybody is putting the generator and the generators together in their own repository. I don't think anyone was arguing against that. I have one more thing that is probably worth group discussion in this proposal is: do we want to the base library for each language? Do we want to group that? Do we want to publish that together with the generated clients? I think it's probably feel we should.
Sorry, what was that, David?
I think it should be a separate repo. That the generic pieces should be in a separate repo from the generated pieces.
Yeah, I feel like if we want to have any hope of like composability between the generated pieces, that they should be published together with the non-generated pieces.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Chow is a big advocate for combining them, just because it would be simpler.
Well, the non-generated pieces are going to need to be able to be used by all of the generated repos.
Correct.
So how would that, if we split the generated things into multiple repos, how would that practically speaking work?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think if composability is like even if there's desire for any composability at all, I think they have to be in separate.
Yeah. I say we just try that.
Even if we end up putting all of our clients into a single repo, there will still be other parties having clients for their APIs that are never going to live in a Kubernetes repo that would want to pull in
Even if we
the
keep
non-generated
everything
stuff.
together, you can still generate your own API and surface.
Yeah, but making someone pull in all the Kubernetes APIs just to build a client that makes use of a watch utility that isn't API specific doesn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
You are not going to pull the API specific thing into your repo, right? Because it's if you are using a dependency management tool, it will only import the utility.
I'm still
that
sensitive,
actually
right?
I
You
think
bump.
our code from all intertwined because we didn't separate it more strongly. So I don't actually believe that would work for very long.
Yeah.
But generators tend to output their files into one single folder, right? So it's easy to maintain the folder level separation.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me if we have them in the same repo, but I want them separate. So whether what that looks like by language, right? So in Java, you have libraries, you have different jars. In Go, you can have different packages, and we can have package enforcement on the repo that says these packages are the generated ones that are API specific. These are the utilities. It doesn't bother me. I just want to make sure you can just pull in the utilities.
I just really think that we have a separability. Like these repos are composable. Like you can choose what you get. This repo everybody needs. I don't.
So the thing that makes it more complicated is we have to re-vendor in change from the.
It's publishing like the base has to be the generator. The output relies on a particular version of the base.
That I think is the bigger one, is that the generated code has an implicit dependency on a particular version of the base library.
And I think it's better for us to experience that than to have someone else experience it and then us be like, well, I hadn't seen that before. So I think separate buys.
It's a problem that has to be solved. And yeah, we should eat our own dog food as far as like generating the types on top of the generators and the utilities.
Yeah, that's something else I wanted to talk about. Maybe not in this meeting, but at some point, does it really make sense to? Well, yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Do we at least have a scheme for making sure that the customer knows that if they're pulling in this generated and they're composing, they have to pull in this utility library?
You need to express that in
Well, that's my point. And we need to have a way of expressing that in Go, in Python, in Java. Every language we support, we have to have a way of expressing that.
I was thinking to do that. What for Go, yes, is so that
Right.
the generator can actually put the exact branch or version that it depends on that's generated. For Python, I was thinking to keep sub-modules.
Okay, but as long as, I mean, this has to be something we do. We have to have a way of indicating what that dependency is in every language we want to support.
Although we have extra complexity because GoGet will always get to the master branch.
Yeah,
so
GoGet.
we also need to make sure
it's a disaster.
Make sure that the generator code and the master branch of the generator code and the master branch of the base code.
Yeah. So in GitHub, we can set what our default branch is, so we can make master not be our default branch.
But that's also
let's not open that up. It's actually a lot more complicated than that.
Even we do that, we still need to make release of the generator code and the base code at the same time.
Does GoGet support Git submodules?
Hey guys, it's still really hard to hear anything that you guys are saying over there.
Yeah, this is
it's.
I think they're plotting their takeover of the world. It's on the open later on.
Yeah.
just another good one.
Okay, I just switched that to be the speaker. Does it work?
I don't think it's the microphone that is.
That is now the speaker and the microphone. Okay. Okay. We have 20 minutes left. I also wanted to talk about the field gating proposal that I sent out. Jordan gave me a lot of comments. Did anybody else look at this document?
I'll assume I agree with Jordan. I did not read it in detail. This is the one that let an API server decide it was going to reject someone's input, right? But still.
This is about letting users tag their fields in the API types with dev, alpha, beta, or non-portable, and then flag enabling or disabling at runtime those fields. Additionally, if a field can have a warning attached with it, we go. If we agree we want to go down this route, I'll go find Brendan's PR about adding HTTP warning headers and see where that is.
And this was supposed to be an alternative.
Yeah, this was an alternative to the last three things I tried in this space.
I'm trying to remember. We had one that I thought we were close to agreement on. That was alpha fields always break, and then
yeah, I don't think we were actually like Eric Toon was sort of arguing for that, but not really, because he was definitely not on board with always breaking alpha fields, and I just the version that I wrote up like that, I just don't think it's feasible unless we're really committed to that. And I don't think we are.
Yeah, so that basically required no reason.
Yeah, that one was nice in that it required nothing new. Well, we said we would gate alpha fields, so
yeah,
it's a little bit
that we should do it.
Yeah, but that's
so
this proposal's
that concern me about this.
You could agree.
It makes it hard to look at an object and know whether it's using alpha fields. So it requires submitting it to a server and seeing if you get a warning back to know whether or not this thing is using alpha fields. That's
but I mean,
odd.
You need that anyway, right? Because a field may be alpha or not alpha depending on the server that you're sending it to.
Well, the one where we name alpha fields alpha, it's clear that you're integrating with something that is alpha. I liked that aspect of that proposal.
But then you always have to break people, and we're not willing to always break people. So.
So then the other two things about this, if a field starts as alpha, so you have an object definition, a YAML file locally, and you have a client that is not, if I'm reading this correctly, the client is not intended to be aware of gates. It's not responsible for scanning gates. The server is. So the client is just going to take that YAML and submit it to the server. And the YAML is the server is going to say, is this a field that I have flagged as alpha and disabled, then reject or warn or whatever. You still have schema breakages version to version, right? So if I have a local object definition that is using, that I built using an alpha field with one schema, and then I submit it to a beta server that changed the schema, well, the server is not going to reject it because from the server's perspective, it's a beta field.
Jordan, can you say, is the thing that I'm showing on the screen, is that the scenario that you're trying to talk about?
Let me get back to the Zoom level.
Because I can't quite follow your description.
No, so where it says the dynamic client is not affected by this problem, this is sort of the reverse problem. So the problem on the screen is an alpha client that has strongly typed structs can't decode beta fields, right? So that's gonna make an old client barf.
Oh, this is about alpha clients talking to. This isn't about clients decoding stuff. It's about servers not accepting the stuff that the client is sending to them.
Yeah. Right. So there was a schema change. I built my object when the field was alpha, and if I had submitted to alpha servers, they could warn me or reject or whatever, but then the field graduated to beta and changed schemas. And now my alpha object definition, my YAML file, can't be submitted to beta servers. Like,
I vote for number 4 on this list, which is we disallow that. It's like you pick your favorite name, and if you screwed up and you have to change the schema in a breaking way, you have to pick a new name. Sorry.
Okay.
Practically speaking, I'm not aware of a single instance of that ever happening. Like in all the fields we've ever added. So
that's certainly easiest.
I say roll the dice on that one.
That's certainly easiest. I also like 3 is also appealing. Don't worry about it. It's never worked. That didn't work previously.
Well, that's basically what I'm saying. It's like it's never worked, but it never happened either.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, we don't find out until the thing is GA, and we get user feedback that we screwed up. Like we try to push things so aggressively to stable that we don't discover those kinds of major issues.
And so what it would look like, it would be less a schema change and more of a, we're not going to go this direction, this field, like the name is dead, sorry.
Yes, yeah. So in general, I think this approach is very compatible with other things we need to do anyway, which is we need a dry run operation, which says, tell if this would succeed or not, or what the result would be, but don't actually do it. We need that for every kind of mutation. We need to have server-side validation, so we can rip the validation code out of queue-control, but it needs to be optional. So the flag gating of alpha fields would play very nicely with that. If you specified an alpha field and that field were disabled and you requested strong validation, then you would get back an error.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this would be very complementary to other things we need to do anyway.
Okay.
So what we're talking about now is the only difference that we're going to have from exactly what we have today is that we are going to have a way for the server to be configured to reject any object that sets these alpha fields.
No, we're going to be able to make those fields be as if they weren't there.
Yeah, the server will treat the fields as if they don't exist. It won't admit them in the open API spec.
Not just that it won't exist, but it can reject it. But just because it's rejecting it and we're sure we have no data in that field does not mean we're free to change the schema of it. So
I would say we should only read, so if it's as if the field weren't there, the field would be dropped on the floor. If the client requests strong validation, whether it's an alpha field or not an alpha field, it would be an error.
If we're dropping since we can go one step nicer than just dropping it on the floor, we can drop it on the floor and give a warning. So by the way, you had alpha fields which were dropping.
So we should do that not just for alpha fields, but in general. If someone specifies a field and it's not valid, we can generate a warning by default and allow the client to request an error.
Yes.
Disabled alpha fields should be no different than any other field that's not understood. It should be as if they're not there.
I definitely agree with that, but one of these things is like 10 minutes of work once we have the thing, and the other is significantly more work. So it's a question of how much effort for the benefit. Okay.
Should it be something like we do a strong validation and warn people anyway?
Yes.
For anything, not just dropping fields.
Yes. By default, we warn. If they request it, we give an error.
We give an error.
So that's 5589. It is.
Yeah, it's just like compiler warning errors.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any remaining objections to that document?
What exactly is non-portable?
Oh, non-portable, the idea was to, like, suppose you use the GCE persistent disk. The idea is that your cluster administrator can disable non-portable fields. Like GCE persistent disk only works in GCP, doesn't work on-prem or in AWS. So the server can be like, can send back a warning message to be like, sorry, you need to use PVC to accomplish this. The idea is to force the users of your cluster to only write applications that can be moved between cloud providers.
The alpha and the beta I see, and that's obvious. Dev is slightly less obvious to me how dev is different than alpha. and non-core seems only related to the rest. So
dev is different from alpha in that dev is no clients out there are built with dev other than ones for developers' own testing. So you are free to change the schemas of dev fields. Like there's no clients out there.
But the intent of that would be for features which aren't even complete and don't work?
Right. The intent is like, I'm still working on my API. I want to submit my API and my implementation separate PRs. The API will be half-baked until like I have an implementation in.
I would love a way to say this feature is not ready for release. Yeah. We're not going to allow it in the release.
Yeah, this feature is not even alpha. You can't use it. It'll blow up your cluster. That's what dev is for. It's like even it's like not even alpha.
Once we start using our own generated clients, how do we avoid generating clients with dev fields? Like I definitely understand the intent. So, I like that. I just don't know how it works.
The idea is we'll start generating clients from the Open API spec, and the dev fields won't be included in the Open API spec.
Is it also true that something like there's a corollary flag on the API server build so that you can have a dev API server which will accept dev fields and a non-dev build will not?
Yeah. The idea is dev would be like a build time flag, like if you want to build dev in or because like you probably will want to enable E2E testing on your dev feature, stuff like that. So it needs to be a compile time flag.
Non-portable doesn't seem comparable to the rest.
And so non-portable I included. I don't feel super strongly about implementing it right away. I think it's a pretty compelling use case. Like admins want to force users of their clusters to only submit jobs that they can move between cloud providers.
Well, at least portable is a little bit stronger than something which I do think we definitely need, which is any features which don't actually work on a given Kubernetes service or distribution, you should be able to get back the same kind of warnings or errors as features that are otherwise disabled. Like it's not user-friendly to submit something that has no chance of working, like Elastic Block Storage on Google Cloud or something like that.
Yeah, I guess nothing in this doc except the non-portable bit really gives me pause, just because it's kind of like an extra layer of nicety on what we already have.
Yes, so non-portable is sort of like you could easily split that into two things. Like the mechanism described is fairly simple, so people could define their own field gates, and you could have one for GCP, one for AWS, one for
we could have one for every cloud provider.
You have one for every cloud provider, and you label each field with like the gate of the cloud provider and the non-portable gate. Like that way an admin can like turn them all off, or they can turn on or off just the specific cloud providers.
For the non-portable and go ahead with the rest of this doc and reevaluate non-portable later.
Well, I would also defer the dev stuff, especially if it's going to be a build time thing. And I agree with the point about how do we address the generated libraries and stuff like that. So I think if we just start with the dynamic gates.
Sure. I mean, this stuff is easy. I mean, if we have the mechanism in, it's like half a dozen lines of code to add the dev thing or whatever. So,
all right.
So yeah.
I guess alpha has the same problem if we have generated libraries with the alpha fields in.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't allow schema changes for alpha things, then a lot of my questions go away. Like old client, new server, new client, old server. If it's going to just accept or reject, not have to deal with different schemas.
I think the other rule we need to make, which we learned when we changed command, is changing semantics without changing the schema. We also need to ban, right? Yeah, because it was impossible to find things which expected and they were treating it like args, and then we changed command to mean entry point and added args, and that was just impossible to basically automatically find those.
So when we're doing API review, people need to be aware that, like, if they've picked their like all-time favorite name for this field, and they just want to throw out an API as an alpha API, they need to know, like, if you
honestly,
screw this up.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do need to know that. So on a related topic, I think we really need to write a validator at this point to catch common API conventions and snafus. And one of the things we could actually check is, are you changing the schema of a field that already existed in a previous release or something like that. That would just make API reviews, I think, less painful. And it can't count the number of times that I tell people to like fix capitalization or stupid crap that I don't want to waste time on.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to say approved sans portable and dev. Okay. Sorry, Bill, it doesn't look like we're going to get to your.
Okay, no problem.
Unless.
Should I say anything just like 5 seconds about it?
So we haven't gotten to Jordan's repo syncing entry.
I'll let him.
Yeah. Jordan, what do you want to talk about with regards to repo syncing?
And now that 1.6 cut, we have people who are trying to vendor like the 1.6 API and then the associated repos, and there aren't a set of matching, or not matching SHAs, but a set of SHAs that are coherent among the repos. And I was asking Chow about it, and he said we couldn't push SHAs from the 1.6 branch or tag. I wasn't sure why not.
I mean, we're using a robot to do the publishing, and it will always pull the heads of a branch and then publish to every repo. So I'm saying we should just make a release branch in each of the repos we're publishing, and this release branch will tracking the Kubernetes release 1.6, and the robot will publish whatever committing into release 1.6 to those branches.
But it shouldn't actually pull head of the release branches. It should pull the last tag.
Right. Or, I mean, if it's just a tooling thing, like if it doesn't have the ability to do this today, okay, but do we agree that we need the ability to pull, like, sync SHAs out to the repos from a given tag?
I think that you two are talking about different things and you don't realize it. So there is a file in each of the repos called Kubernetes-SHA. When I initially made that file, that was the SHA that you synced with. Right, that is the you synced on SHA-foo, and everyone syncs to SHA-foo, and they all list that in their Kubernetes SHA file, regardless of whether there were any changes. One of the changes that Chow made to the robot was that if you sync SHA-foo, but you haven't had any changes since the last time you synced, you don't actually get new commits. So the Kubernetes SHA is not updated to reflect the last time you attempted to sync.
So it sounds like that should be like, even if there's no code changes, we should update that file.
Or we can make another file.
I can update that file too. Doesn't matter what's the last time they changed. Matter
we are using that to differentiate what we should publish in the next.
Maybe we should add a file that maps like this Kubernetes SHA means this SHA. Like the Kubernetes SHA may increase for quite a bit before the other one changes.
I just want to be able to tell people who are looking at the v160 tag of Kubernetes, like, what level of the other 3 repos to pull.
Honestly, I think this is a bigger problem than like our group. I think as we start to split pieces of Kubernetes out into other repos, like, we need to test things consistently, we need to release things consistently. Like, yeah, I think it sort of needs a project-wide solution. I'm not sure what to do in the short term about it.
Well, it's a piece of metadata that would be useful in trying to link these together. I mean, I don't have a huge objection. I guess the only objection I can see to doing it is you end up with a lot of commits.
I don't think that.
I don't know that I care.
Problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be like what, one commit a day. I don't think that's.
Are we going to only publish every day? I think David wants us to publish every 3 hours.
Every few hours certainly sounded nice to me. It's a robot. I mean, I guess we technically pay it by the hour, but.
Tracking head of master and head of release branches is one thing, but definitely on the tagged releases, like that's the thing I care about at the moment, and that seems like something we should be able to do.
Yeah, just like we're going to have all the same problems with the API Machinery repo that we've had with the client repository. Like people are going to want to know what the release schedule is. They're going to want to know what they depend on. They're going to want to know what the deprecation policy is, how we version it. So we sort of improved things a little bit in the client Go by adding a bunch of documentation to the README page. Like all the stuff captured in the README page for the client Go repository needs to be captured for all of these other repositories.
Client Go can't answer this question either. The issue here is it's metadata that just isn't there. You end up trying to describe to someone that either they just get the latest, or they try to find the latest of all the Kubernetes SHAs and all the libraries they depend upon, and then find the tag, the minimum tag that matches, that has that particular commit in it. And so it's possible to describe, but people have been complaining that it's not obvious.
Yeah, I agree. We don't do a perfect job of this in client Go. Like there's not actual like this SHA is compatible with this SHA. There's
a common tag.
Yeah, there's a matrix of like this branch is compatible with this branch.
Am I missing? What I was expecting was when we looked at a given Kubernetes level and synced out to the repos, we would then tag the same tag across those repos. Yeah. Is that not what we're wanting to do?
Like, if there's like 5 tags in the release 1.6 branch in Kubernetes, there should be 5 tags in the release 1.6 branch of API Machinery.
But we are not going to have a release 1.6 branch.
That's fine. Yeah.
That means we give up on Semver, at least for now. I don't have an objection to giving up on Semver. Just.
Oh no. No, I want to use Semver.
Why does the Semver have to have anything to do with the tag, right? If we have a Kubernetes master prefix for a tag, you say, look, I have built the master Kubernetes. I have a client Go, which is tagged with that has nothing to do with the version of client Go. It's saying that this version of client Go is compatible with this
corresponds
version.
to this SHA from Kubernetes. I agree.
It has nothing to do with client Go version.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good idea.
For people, the clients want to build off of the last released version of the code, like 1.6. Right? They're not trying to build off of whatever changes happened since our last release.
Clients want to do all kinds of things, but a reasonable request is, hey, there was a Kubernetes release. I need to pull in what I used to pull in, which was like API types. And now those are split across 3 repos, and I have to pick a SHA from these 3 repos. How do I do it?
For the last release.
Yeah.
Can we tag any commits, or does it have to?
You can tag any.
Yeah, I think you can do any, and you can even re-tag the same commit for multiple releases if you want.
But still, current. I think it's.
I like the idea of a prefixed tag that indicates this isn't a version of this. This is like tracking an upstream tag from the core repo. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So did you see I guess there's feedback that you just forwarded saying that the client Go versioning makes no sense. It's not clear to me that the semantic versioning that we're doing for client Go is actually viable to its consumers.
Okay, I think that's something to take up in another meeting. We're 5 minutes over.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
That's reminding me I need to